All right. And I got to hit record. And here he is, as promised, the new graphic designer of the Dynasty Warzone and a guy that I'm proud to call a friend. His name is Matt, at Matty Big Chest on Twitter. Matt, welcome to the Dynasty Warzone and welcome to the team, man.
You know, it feels like I've been here for a while, but good to be here, Memphis.
Yeah, it's really good. So you have been, now it's not ready to roll yet. I'm going to roll out sometime in October. I will give credit where credit is due. Our good friends over at the Dynasty Trades HQ podcast, they did a little, we don't call it rebranding because they're still the Dynasty Trades HQ podcast, but they did like some new logos and some new looks, and it really inspired me. And when you've got a really creative, smart guy like Matt on your team, you know, I'm looking forward to the new things that we're going to be rolling out from a graphics and a visual standpoint here at the Dynasty Warzone. He's even threatened to help put some fanciness on this YouTube feed. But Matt, man, I know you're doing Abby's. You did some during the Scott Fish Bowl, including mine. And you may say to yourself, man, it's just a G.I. Joe in a package with the G.I. Joe graphic in the background. And I would say, exactly. That's exactly what I wanted. He nailed it. And if you look at it, I chose a bad guy because I am the bad guy. But if you look at it, above the picture of the actual action figure, there's a little circle. And if you know anything about G.I. Joes, in that circle, it normally had a picture of the Cobra. For those that don't know, Cobra is the bad guy, the villain, the heavy, the heel, if you will, in the G.I. Joe world. And instead of being the Cobra logo and saying enemy, it's the Dynasty Warzone logo, and it says enemy. The devil is in the details. Matt, you kicked ass on my logo. I love it. It's still up right now. Man, tell these people about some of your graphic work and what you've been up to.
Yeah, Memphis. So I started originally just making internet memes, really. I started making memes for the Detroit Lions, and it evolved from there.
Oh,
Um,
I was hoping you were going to tell me you did that one of SpongeBob where he's getting out of the chair and he's like, "All right,
mm,
I'm gonna head out."
no, I have some classic ones over on their subreddit, but it really started on using my iPhone, just using my iPhone to make graphic design, and it works pretty well. You can just get some free apps and make some avatars for people, and it evolves from there. Now I'm purchasing some stuff to actually make it a hobby and a career, maybe in graphic design.
Well, you've certainly got an eye for it, and I'll tell you one thing that you have that a lot of new entrepreneurs do not have, and that is you're a good listener. As you and I have been going back and forth for what feels like forever on some of these new logos and looks, you are a good listener. You're very receptive to feedback, and you've done a good job. I know you're starting to dabble a bit in MFL graphic design. You've seen the work of guys like Mark in Michigan. You've seen the work of my buddy G of the Aussie guys. Both guys do really great work. I will tell you that G is not for hire. I don't even know what form of currency they use in Australia, but if you have a bunch of it and you want to throw it his way, maybe. But that's something that you could be offering. We know Mark in Michigan can be very backed up, as well as a lot of people. So that might be something you'd be interested in. If the people are interested and they want to DM you, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so the best way to get a hold of me is follow me on Twitter at Matty Big Chest. Play on Mr. Big Chest. You know, it worked perfectly for the name. Slide in the DMs and I'll get you. You know, I always respond within 20 minutes usually.
There you go. If you're looking for good customer service, man, this is your guy. So you come in, man. You wanted to be on the podcast. Here you go. For those that don't know, Matt is a very good Dynasty player. He is helping us in the Patreon with the Devy League. But tonight, man, we're going to talk about a team. We're going to start with the Carolina Panthers. They might as well be a college team. So this is right in your wheelhouse as they got a bunch of young guys. Let's go over the stats. Carolina last year finished 20th, which puts them in the middle in points per game last year, that middle third with 21.3 points per game. I guess outside of Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore, I have no earthly idea how. This year's over and under is 5.5. That's tied for the second worst in the league with the Redskins and one other team. The only team worse than 5.5 is the Jags. So Vegas and the folks at the Action Network are not expecting a lot of wins out of this team. This team is 32nd, aka dead last, in returning 2019 offensive snaps back in 2019. Only 58.2% of their offensive snaps are back in 2020. Now, this team last year, they were fifth in total plays with 5,469 and 19th in total yards with 5,469. And I had that number backwards. They actually had 1,130. That's not great efficiency. You're fifth in one and below the middle in the other. That as we say is no bueno. Now, they were number 2 overall in total pass plays last year with 633. And they were 20th in total pass yards again. 2 to 20th, but they were 20th with 3,650. They were 24th in rush yards with 24th in rush attempts with 386, and 14th in rush yards with 1,819. So not the most efficient offense, but now Scott Turner has taken his craft to Washington along with Ron Rivera, and in comes Matt Rule, and offensive coordinator. You might remember him from LSU's national championship team last year, Joe Brady. I'm going to start with you, Matt. I always do with the quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater. You start with Teddy Bridgewater, and then we'll go into who's new and who's gone. But go ahead and give us what you think about Teddy and his dynasty outlook.
Yeah, so Teddy Two Gloves, he takes a lot of risks for me, I think, personally. He had a 4.6 touchdown rate last year, 10.1 points per game in 2019 for fantasy purposes, starting on the Saints with all those weapons. I mean, obviously, it's got to go up, right? He's got Christian McCaffrey. He'll be dumping it off, getting those easy points. I don't know. I'm out on Teddy Two Gloves from here on out. I haven't owned him ever, and I never will. It's just not. He's not consistent enough for me at a quarterback position, especially in a super flex league where you need to have 2 good ones to win.
Yeah, I agree. I could not imagine having to roster him in a 1 QB league. Even in the one QB league that I still am an active participant in, the GOAT leagues, I've only got 2 quarterbacks, and I could easily get another one via cheap trade if I needed to. I've got Deshaun Watson, I've got Sam Darnold, and I'm not overly investing in a 1 QB. But in the 2 QB league, for me, Teddy's a no-go. Teddy feels a lot like Gardner Minshew with 2 gloves and no mustache. It's this team, as you just heard, the folks in Vegas do not expect a lot out of this team. And if this team finishes, in the top 5 of next year's draft class, picks 1 through 5, what are the odds, much like Gardner Minshew, what are the odds that Teddy can fade Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance? And I like to remind people of this because it happens. 3 years ago, we did not have Baker Mayfield as the number 1 overall pick. Before that football season started, Bucky Brooks had Baker as like a 3rd-round QB. I'm not saying he was wrong. I'm not saying he's right either. But Baker came out of nowhere, wound up being the number 1 overall pick. This time last year, no one had Joe Burrow on their radar as being the number 1 overall pick. Yet here we are. So not only do we have the big 3 that we're already talking about with Lawrence, Fields, and Lance, there could be someone else. And with 3 or 4 quarterbacks and a good chance that Carolina's drafted in the top 5, and if you look at Teddy's contract, it's nothing really more than a 2-year deal. So you play Teddy this year, you're bad because you're going to be bad. Then next year you draft a quarterback, and then you either redshirt that guy behind Teddy, or you start the season with Teddy, or there's a lot of options. You could definitely go LA Chargers with this thing. So for me, for Dynasty, I am out on Teddy. Not a buy. If I could sell him to someone who's optimistic about Matt Rule and the offense, great. I don't know that you'll get a first for him without injury. Injury will drive the price up. But even if he was my QB3 and I expected him to be my QB3, I would field offers. Before we get into the running backs, I'm going to throw it back to my co-host tonight, Matt. I did want to cover the additions and subtractions that I missed earlier. So the additions.
I do want to talk about Teddy though, a little more.
Sure.
I know last year in pinches I started Kyle Allen in this offense. And I know in pinches, like at the start, he was effective. He made Christian McCaffrey just this rare double breed of back. And I think that's what Teddy's going to do in this offense. And I think that's all he's good for. And you set it up perfectly. If you're trying to acquire a quarterback for a year, sell it that they put him for 2-year contract because they're drafting a rookie next year for him to learn under Teddy, who's learned under many quarterbacks like Drew and other names, you know?
Nope, you're right. And Teddy is one of the additions. You have Teddy Bridgewater, a guy that you may see on the field this year, especially if this team's really stinking it up. PJ Walker of the was he the XFL guy or was he the other defunct league?
XFL, yeah.
So he was lighting it up over there. They brought in Robbie Anderson from the Jets, who we're going to talk about later, as well as Seth Roberts, tight end Seth DeValve. And then they brought in some other people. I mean, all their draft picks were defensive players. Their losses, Cam Newton, who's now in New England, Kyle Allen, who's now in Washington, Greg Olson, who's now in Seattle, as well as a handful of other defensive and offensive lineman type guys. But speaking of the offensive line, where are you at with Christian McCaffrey? Are you stock up, stock down? What are you doing with CMC?
I mean, he's got to be a stock up kind of guy for me because, you know, Christian McCaffrey's worst games were coming under Cam Newton last year where he's averaging 4.6 yards per carry. I mean, he's the backbone to that offense, and it was staggering under Cam. You're putting in a quarterback who's going to be checking it down more. He's going to be throwing more angle routes to Christian McCaffrey. You're going to be seeing a lot more touchdowns. I think Christian McCaffrey is a buy. I would buy him personally, no matter what it would cost. You're going to win a championship with him on your team. He's just a buy or a hold if you have him.
Well, for me, I love CMC, and we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on Reggie Bonifant or Jordan Scarlett or anyone else they may or may not pick up. The good thing about Christian McCaffrey from a dynasty standpoint is the man got paid. I believe he is currently on a per-year basis the highest paid running back in the NFL. But for me, I mean, he's going into year 4. And, you know, I always say this because I love the phrasing, but the NFL stands for not for long. You know, going into that season that all of a sudden Todd Gurley wasn't Todd Gurley anymore, going into that season, his value was to the moon. And then all of a sudden, one little issue with his knee. Now, in fairness, Christian McCaffrey has nothing going back to college like Todd Gurley. But if I'm not a contender, let's say I have a really ugly roster and he is the only piece on my team, then I might be listening to a package of things. Now, it would have to be huge. I always reference our friends at the Dynasty Trade Calculator. You're talking 2 or 3 first plus. You're talking a bunch of young guys that maybe you really, really like. But he is not untouchable for me unless I feel like I'm a big time contender and I have the depth to win. But yeah, I mean, he's a stud. He's the one-on-one. What were you going to say?
Would you move McCaffrey for, let's say, Miles Sanders and a 2021 first?
Not enough. I have not seen enough of Miles Sanders to say that I would. Now, I know that
let's increase it to 2 firsts now. How about that?
Sold American. Because to me, it's all about points per game. Obviously, I think last year I don't have his exact stats pulled up because I have the entire, team and et cetera. But I think he was like 24, 25 PPR points a game. And I know that's a lot, but is that sustainable? You know, the guy who made him the RB1 overall last year, he's gone. He's in Washington right now. We don't know what Joe Brady is going to do. We can assume. Well, it's an easy mindset to think, well, Joe Brady would have to be an idiot not to use his best overall weapon, but we don't know that. We're not sure. So, yes, sir.
He'd have to be an idiot to not end up in Cincinnati next year for Joe Brady. What do you think about that?
I will burn that bridge when I get to it. It very well could, but I will say this. If you go back and look historically, the owner and / GM of the Bengals, Mike Brown, is pretty damn cheap. So to imagine him, especially, and think about this. Now this is a little sidetrack, but it's worth saying. All those head coaches that you think may get fired next year, they're probably not going to get fired. Revenue is going to be down in the NFL. And yes, these guys are billionaires, but a lot of owners are going to turn a blind eye and they're going to say, it was the COVID season. We're going to give this coach one more. You know what? I'm not buying out his contract. I'm not going to pay, Zach Taylor, whatever he's owed, $12 million. I'm not paying him $12 million. I'm not writing a $12 million check to make him go away so I can write a $30 million check to bring Joe Brady in, especially when these owners are slated to lose 40, 50, 60 million dollars. So the head coach that you have now will probably be your head coach in 2021. Well, there be some firings, of course. There's always going to be Matt Patricia's.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Jerry.
Oh yeah.
But back to the wide receivers here in Carolina. I'll talk about the three. You've got Robbie Anderson, you've got Curtis Samuel, and you got DJ Moore. Anyone who's in a league with me knows that I own DJ Moore. There are 2 leagues that I'm in out of just about every league that I'm in where I don't own DJ Moore. I'm still cussing you, Travis May, no matter what I offer you in the Ultimate Dynasty Podcasters League. You will not come off DJ Moore. But he's awesome. And, you're buying him before he pops. And I know that there's still a lot of love for Tyreek and Devontae Adams, etc. But, man, for me, he's easily top 5. And I know that seems high, but, did you ever think Amazon stock was going to get to $2,000 a share? Probably not. And I'm not saying that's where he's going, but that's certainly where I see him going. As far as the other 2, I don't think Curtis Samuel will be on this team next year. I believe this is his 4th year. I believe he is a free agent in this offseason, and they brought Robbie Anderson in. We're going to see what's going on. So for me, DJ Moore is a buy. He's a very expensive buy. He's borderline 2 first in the DTC, but he is someone I'm buying. Robbie Anderson, I'm not buying, but I'm not selling. If someone wants to overpay with like a mid-second for Robbie Anderson, sure, let's talk shop. But outside of that, I kind of want to see what I got. And Curtis Samuel, run fast, buddy. Run fast, run down the seam,
Get those air yards, buddy. Get those air yards.
Get those
go get those Twitter air yards. I love seeing those tweets from that one guy. Oh, Curtis Samuel's air yards, they're the highest ever.
Yeah,
Can't get hit though. Can't get hit.
Teddy doesn't throw it deep. So for me, Curtis Samuel, I'm stocked down, but he's not worth enough to sell. Where are you at with these wide receivers?
I'm about where you are. I think DJ Moore is a hold if you have him. I would not be selling him if you own him. I would be buying him if you don't own him. Curtis Samuel, I think is a buy. I think he's going into his 3rd, 4th year. 1 year was completely kind of just ruined by injury, and it was a freak injury too. It was like a medical one, and he's coming into his own. He's fast. He's not going to be on this team anymore in the coming years, and there's always a need for a speedster on a team. And he can catch the ball if he's given the chance. He's just not been given a chance. He had a quarterback with a bum arm. What do you think about Curtis Samuel on a different team?
Well, I was getting ready to say, I think he's a good player. I just think he's on the wrong team. He's been in the league 3 years. This is his 4th, going into his 4th year. I don't know, man. Somewhere between John Ross and Tyreek Hill. Yeah, that's where he could be, but Teddy's not going deep. To your point, Cam had a bad arm.
Mm-hmm.
Teddy does not.
He had a great arm when he was healthy. I want to say that. I don't want to come on the first podcast ever and say Cam had a bad arm. But
No. He had a cannon. It wasn't the most accurate arm, but he looked pretty good late. I just don't think Curtis Samuel's the right fit, but who knows? Matt Rule has everywhere he's been has been speed. So a
lot of RPO. A lot of RPO.
Yeah. So I don't know. If you want to hang on to him and see what happens this season because you think there's only that, if you think that stock has plummeted and hit the bottom and there's nowhere to go but up, hey, by all means hold and see if you get any kind of a rebound. All right, last position, Ian Thomas. I am certainly intrigued. He is a hold/buy because he's very cheap. He's going in the late teens of startup drafts, and I would love to have him as my tight end, 3, a young developmental guy, but with no Greg Olsen there in the way. He is a straight buy for me. What about you, Ian Thomas? Fan? Not a fan?
I'm going to go find my Memphis in the league. If I have him, I'm going to sell him to you because, Matt Rule, he likes his old school tight ends. He likes his blockers. He likes them in line. And Ian Thomas, he's a pretty big guy. He's going to be in line. I think that they have a three wide receiver set. and that Ian Thomas can be used just kind of like as a lead blocker for Christian McCaffrey. He's gonna be a jackknife. Christian McCaffrey goes to the left, to the right. Ian Thomas at almost every play. Almost it's gonna be power offense, just zone run McCaffrey up the middle. And I'm a sell Ian Thomas because there's not enough targets for him.
Well, and that we don't know. That's the mystery around Joe Brady. That's the mystery around Matt Rule. We can't guarantee that there's going to be another 633 pass plays as Scott Turner is down the road in Washington with Ron Rivera. But overall on this offense, man, I am stock neutral. I'm going to hold this offense. I like who I like. I like Christian McCaffrey. I like DJ Moore. I like Ian Thomas, and I am really kind of indifferent or selling the rest. Again, don't mind holding Robbie or Curtis Samuel, but Teddy's my definite sell on this team. What about you? Up, down, or neutral on these Panthers?
I am generally down on these Panthers just because Ron Rivera is, Ron Rivera is a good coach. You lost the culture coach. You're gonna have a down year.
I will say I'm down on them for 2020. That's what the 3-team parlay is about.
Yeah.
But this is an offense that, again, that's why I like who I like. I think DJ Moore's safe. Christian McCaffrey in that contract is safe. And I'm willing to take the gamble on Curtis Samuel. And again, I'll watch everybody else. Long term, love what I think you're going to see in Carolina. Short term, I don't think you're going to like it much at all. Okay, speaking of not liking it much at all, let's go up the East Coast. Let's go up the Eastern Seaboard. Let's go see my buddy Adam Gase and the New York Jets. This team finished 31st last year in points per game, 17.3 points per game. Now, the Action Network does have their season over-under number at 7. If their schedule wasn't as tough this year, I could see that. This team actually won 7 games last year, and that includes the man Sam Darnold being out with mono. So to finish 7-9, not too shabby. This year's competition's a little bit stiffer, and without the continuity on the offense, this team. So if Carolina was dead last in offensive snaps returning, the New York Jets are second to last. They're 31st in 2019 offensive snaps returning with 60%. A lot of new faces here, and they were 28th last year in total plays with 956, and they were 32nd in total yards, dead last in total yardage on this team with 4,368 yards. They were 22nd in total pass plays, which I found to be a little bit odd. But given their record, middle of the road, slightly below, a little bit below the middle in total pass plays, 521, and they were 29th in passing yards with 3,118, 26th in rushing yards with 26th in rushing plays with 383, and 31st in rushing yards with 1,257. Who's new? Joey Flacco is there as the backup. Frank Gore is there as the mentor / will never retire running back. Rashad Perryman, and they brought in a bunch of offensive linemen, including in the draft with Mekhi Becton. They brought in wide receiver Denzel Mims from Baylor, running back LaMichael Pirine, and offseason losses, Bilal Powell, Robbie Anderson, and some less desirable offensive linemen. So I always go to you, man. You're up. Sam Darnold. Are you a Sam guy? Not a Sam guy?
I'm part of that Sam's Club, dude. Give me a young quarterback who's learning, but not under Gase. I've seen Jim Bob Cooter at Detroit as a personal Detroit fan. Jim Bob Cooter was right under Gase. Tried to run that same mesh offense. It just doesn't work in this day in NFL, and Gase has not adapted. It's just not going to work with him. So I'm not in on him this year. I'm in on him in Dynasty.
So are you proactively drafting / trading for him?
Proactively in rebuilds, yes.
Okay. What are you willing to pay? Because you got to be paying a first plus.
Yeah. So, you're playing for what is it? They call him the Jacobus quarterback, the greatest. I don't know. It's some Jets meme. I'd pay a first and honestly a first and Curtis Samuel, who we just talked about, or a Jarvis Landry, maybe that kind of name. Somewhere in that value, I'd pitch.
If you get that, make sure you share it with me because I think that he is very polarizing. And I think the guys, much like my good buddy Tyler Gunther over at the Dynasty Happy Hour, the guys that love him, love him. I came out loving him. And he's still younger. I mean, this is not ever going to change, by the way. He's still younger than Joe Burrow. You know, going into his fourth NFL season, he finished 7-9 last year, and I think over the last 9 games they were 6-3 and showed some promise. I mean, this team is going to struggle, and there are going to be people giving up on Sam Darnold, and I'm not. I don't think that he's going to be given up on. You know, he's not been given every opportunity like Josh Allen, like Lamar Jackson, even like Baker Mayfield, where the team has surrounded these guys with offensive schemes in Allen and Lamar Jackson that the coaching staff has completely bought in and tailored the offense to what they can do. They've not been catered to like Baker, where it's like, oh, hey, you need 2 running backs that have been to the Pro Bowl. We got you. Pro Bowl tight end, a couple of Pro Bowl wide receivers. We'll bring in a Pro Bowl right tackle. We'll draft a top 10 left tackle. They have given Baker every tool to succeed. What's Sam Darnold got? Man, he's got Rashad Perriman. He's got
a center who injures him.
Denzel Mims. I mean, not a lot. And I think if there's one coach that is on the hot seat that will more than likely be fired, I don't think it'll be Zach Taylor in Cincinnati. I think it will be Adam Gase in New York. And then maybe we can get someone in there to unlock Sam Darnold. So I don't think you have to buy him yet. If you don't own him, don't sell him. But I don't think you have to sell him, buy him just yet. I don't think that stock's bottomed out. I don't think it's cratered.
I have not bought any Sam Darnold yet. Just saying, because his, like you said, his stock is not cratered yet. He's still like a 3rd to 5th round super flex startup, depending on how many quarterbacks go early.
It depends on the tenor of the league. You know, some leagues are quarterback crazy, like the
our Devi league.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, it just depends on the league, but where he's going.
Whoever took Tyler, dude, you see Kyler went 103 in the Devi league. Oh my gosh, who did that? Oh my goodness,
that's too much. We talked about Kyler.
Disgusting.
We talked about Kyler last week. Let's move to Le'Veon Bell. Now, for me, you know what rhymes with Bell? Sell. And this is your last year. So we were talking earlier about the COVID and the potential financial impacts on the salary cap. Now, they can't cut Le'Veon. I mean, they can do whatever the hell they want. But if they cut Le'Veon Bell this year, it's a $16 million cap hit versus just paying him $14 million. Now, next year, those tables turn. And they owe him $14 million, but the dead cap number is $2 million. So look at next year's free agent draft class. You got Connor, you got Mack, you got Cohen, just a ton of guys out there. More college running backs coming in. I mean, this guy's a pain in the ass. It's pretty much legendary at this point. Always into mischief. Nothing bad. Not like Mr. Big Chest, but like with punching moving drivers and fighting with his ex on Twitter and all these other allegations.
Toes.
But it was before it was legal smoking dope. It was calling the cops and reporting his jewelry stolen by 2 chicks, and the 911 dispatcher asking what they were wearing, and he was like, well, when I left they were naked. Perfect. That's the kind of guy that Le'Veon Bell is. It's clear that his time in New York is over. And I wonder if he gets a job. I think in 2021, I think he'll be 28 years old, maybe 29. He's going to need an injury or a team's going to bring him in. I just don't see him. I see his self-worth on the free agent market saying, well, if Marlon Mack's worth whatever, then I'm worth 2 times that or 3 times that. And he's not going to be getting a job. So I'm looking to sell. This guy could evaporate and turn to dust on your roster. As far as Frank Gore, he's Frank Gore. What do you got on Mr. Bell?
Yeah, I just sold Bell in a league for DeAndre Swift. I sold Bell a first and a 2022 first because I just wanted Swift so badly. I just knew that the owner was not giving him up. And I just know Swift is going to be that good. It
Well,
sounds bad, but
it,
bad
it, it,
trade for me.
not really, because you don't. If Swift makes your team good, and if Swift is who I think he is,
Hmm.
to quote Denny Green, if he is who I think he is, then you can end up getting a deal. So right now, on paper, you maybe overpaid a tick, but get your man. That's part of the
Exactly.
thing. So obviously, you're selling Le'Veon Bell. Not going to spend a lot of time on him as I think he's great for
No,
this year. I mean, if you're in a redraft or you're in a tournament, or there might be spots to use him in DFS, but get him the hell off of your dynasty roster, regardless of your roster construction. Whether
nobody
you're
wants to buy him. That's the problem.
that's the thing, is that
He's like
you may
Robbie Anderson.
have to wait. I think the word on the street is that you do need to move Le'Veon Bell, and you're probably going to have to wait and move him in season to a team.
Hmm.
Maybe their starter gets hurt, maybe their starter gets COVID, and they need the depth, and maybe they'll pay up. Maybe you can
Don't
send. Go ahead.
don't make the mistake that Matty Big Chest did and sell him in the offseason. Make the smart move that Memphis is telling you right now and hold him and just wait until he gets that 3 touchdown game, and then you can get a first and some.
Well, I don't know that you'll ever get a first for him, but you might be able to package Le'Veon Bell and a third and get a first for him. I mean, that's a move I'd be willing to make. I mean, these wide receivers, my God, it looks like the bus station scene in Total Recall. It's like a refugee camp for homeless men. I mean, you got Denzel Mims, whatever is the reincarnation of Rashad Perriman. And I know everybody loves Jamison Crowder. Okay, can he stay healthy? I know if you extrapolate his stats, it's wonderful, and with Sam Darnold, it's great. And again, that's fine for redraft. If I had to pick one of these guys for a dynasty roster, it would be Denzel Mims. He's a guy that I've waffled on since the whole rookie, vetting process. I didn't like him initially. I warmed up to him. I'm not sure I like him here. I did see Demaryius Thomas have some great seasons under Adam Gase. I'm torn. I'm not buying Jamison. If I have him, fine. He can be my wide receiver 4 or whatever, maybe like a flex or a bye week fill in type guy. Perriman, zero interest. If you can get anybody to give you anything for him, like a third, just get rid of him. Sell the Tampa Bay narrative from last year. And then Mims, if I got him, I'm holding him. If he hits and becomes the one, you're going to make exponential on your investment. And if not, you probably got him for a second. So that's where I'm at with this wide receiver core. What about you, Matt? Where are you at with the big three in Jetsville?
Yeah. Yeah, Stephen Hill, he is explosive, a talented wide receiver who can make adjustments midair to come down with the ball. I think I'm talking about Denzel Mims, not Stephen Hill, my bad. Um, but yeah, Denzel Mims is about it.
Yeah. Now let's talk about these tight ends. Now, last year, I had to use some band-aiding at the tight end position. I used Ryan Griffin, and he did not do
Mm,
too bad when Chris Herndon was out,
mm.
and they re-signed him. So where are you at with these tight ends?
Man, this is the trickiest tight end room, I think, maybe in the NFL outside of the LA Rams, because you have Ryan Griffin, he did really well with Darnold, right? You started him, I started him. He was winning me games. He was great for those games he played, and then Herndon was great for the games he played too. So are we playing a 12 personnel there and just getting a 50-50?
I will say that I think Herndon's clearly the better pass catcher, but I do believe
Mm-hmm.
Griffin's the better blocker, and I believe he has the confidence of the coaching staff. I mean, I know Herndon was suspended and then missed the rest of the season with a hamstring injury and ended up IRing him. But with nothing to play for, why wouldn't the Jets have put him on the 8-week IR and say, "Hey, man, we need to see the last three or four games of this guy"? They were just like, "Piss on it, shut her down. He's done. We're just gonna." So it could go one of two ways. Hey, we don't think the world of this guy, and there's just no point in bringing him back. Or, hey, we really want to protect this guy because we think we have something here, and we're not going to risk further injury by bringing him back to play a meaningless game. So I can see both sides of that double-edged sword. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, he's a hold. I would just hold both guys. I would not buy anyone. I like to say that if I can get a guy like Ryan Griffin cheap, like say I
Yeah.
already
They're
own Herndon.
free.
Well, Yeah,
I mean, Griffin for the most part in a startup is free.
in a startup, yes, but on existing teams, if you reach out to a guy like the Ryan Griffin owner, they're probably going to be like, well, "What do you know that I don't know?" And
Exactly.
when you offer them a fourth for Ryan Griffin, their little antenna goes up, and they're like, "Well, what does this guy know? This guy, he's on a podcast. He's doing this. What does he know that I don't know? No, I couldn't possibly do it." The way that I would go about getting Ryan Griffin on an existing roster is I would be like, "Look, we got the deal done. Hey, man, throw in Ryan Griffin, and we can get it done." It's like a little something on the back end. It doesn't feel as direct. It feels a little bit more sneaky,
Hmm. You
incognito.
know,
That's how
what
I.
what goes through your head? What goes through your head when you're making these sneaky air quote sneaky moves, where you're offering for, let's say, just Ryan Griffin? Like,
Oh,
what is going through your head at that time to where you want to trade for him?
I don't get that. I don't get that sneaky. Now, what I
Hmm.
do is far. No, I'm not. Like I said, I'm not investing a lot of time in proactively thinking up deals for Ryan Griffin. But I'm
Hmm.
always, 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 always going to ask for a little bit more in a deal.
Hmm.
Always. I'm going to find that little guy on the back of your roster that I like, I'm high on, that, hey, throw that dude in. I'm always going to get the. And here's the thing, you're much more likely to get a guy like Ryan Griffin or that type of player than you are to get like a third or a fourth. I
I'd be
would.
so much more happy to get a Hunter Renfro.
I mean, Hunter Renfro's kind of in that next tier, but I don't want to veer too far off of these Jets. Overall, in this offense, I'm stock neutral. It can't be worse than last year. I think the offensive line will be better. I think Sam Darnold, I mean, God forbid this poor kid get, COVID after getting mono last year.
Hmm.
But I'm stock hold. I mean, the offensive line, I don't know. You can't fall off the floor. They were dead last in yards. I mean, slightly up. I'll be as optimistic as I can. What about you?
I mean, wasn't he hospitalized with mono?
Maybe for a week.
I
Maybe
was
somewhere
I
in the
was
line.
hospitalized with mono last summer, and it was not fun. But I'm stock up on these guys because there's no Tom Brady in that division anymore. I'll take a stock up on the Jets, but not much, not much at all. Gase is still there.
Yeah, Gase in the place makes it a nervous one. All right, let's take this thing home on a high note. Let's
Passing
talk.
Gase.
Yeah,
Hmm?
let's take this thing home on a high note. Let's talk about the New Orleans Saints. A lot of fantasy goodness here. We have got 28.6 points per game last year. That was the third most in the league, tied for third with the team we'll be covering next week, and wrapping this series up in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The folks in Vegas at the Action Network, they have their win total at 10.5. And I kind of like the over. I'm not normally an over guy. It doesn't fit my pessimistic nature. But in this COVID season where continuity matters, I could see it because this team is 11th in offensive snaps returning from 2019 with 80.6%. Again, that's 11th. In total plays last year, they were 21st in total plays last year, and they were ninth in total yards. So super hyper efficient with 5,982 yards, just a shade shy of 6,000 yards. They were 13th in passing plays, and I think it could have been higher had Drew Brees stayed healthy the entire season, but obviously he did not. He had a little hand injury there, but they were seventh in total pass yards with 4,244. In rushing, they were 17th in total rush plays with 405, and they were 16th in rush yards with 1738. The new additions are Jameis Winston at the backup QB, maybe the third string QB. They did bring in the ghost of Ty Montgomery, a guy that I like at least for seasonal leagues, and if you got him, we'll talk about him in a minute. Emmanuel Sanders. They drafted more help on the offensive line, a guy that I'll talk about here in a minute in Adam Troutman. And then the losses were previous backup Teddy Bridgewater and, a couple of guards, nothing too crazy. So again, Matt, you're up. What are you doing with this QB room? Are you a Drew Brees guy? Are you a Jameis guy? And then there's Taysom Hill. Talk to me about these three quarterbacks.
Yeah. So how many are the Raiders in a dome now?
Yeah, they're in that weird thing that looks like a like one of those vacuums that like
Toilet bowls.
yeah, kind of, but yeah, they're in a dome now.
So Drew Brees is. I know he's in Detroit. He's got the Raiders,
Is
and he's got one more on
he's
the
in
road in a dome.
so you're
He's
gonna
gonna
talk about
be killing it this year. This is his MVP year if he's gonna have it. He's got so many games in a dome. There's gonna be no fans in the stand, maybe. Who knows? He's a surgical quarterback. He's just like that Texans game where he came back last year in like the first game of the season, I think. That was unreal from a quarterback. And that's just Drew Brees. So of course I'm gonna buy Drew Brees with like a second and some if I could, but I probably won't be able to because he's Drew Brees. But if I have him, I'm holding him. If I have Jameis, I'm selling him, you know, or holding him if you don't want to sell him for nothing. But yeah, Taysom Hill, keep him.
so you're banking on Taysom Hill. For me, Breeze, if you're not a contender, he's a hold. In a super flex league or in a one QB league, you got to move him in season. You move him now, you're going to get hey, that dude's 40 some odd years old. I'm not giving you squadouche for him. Okay, fine. But if you're in a super flex league and it's week 9 and all of a sudden he comes down with COVID and is going to miss weeks 10, 11, and 12, you might find a much more motivated buyer. So for me, he's a guy that I would look to package, again, kind of like I talked about with Lev Bell. Can I package Drew Brees in a third and get someone's first in a super flex league? It's a deal worth offering. Jameis Winston's very intriguing to me. He is. I like his attitude, kind of. He's always working, but I never understand what he's working on. He's always. You ever know that person? He's always doing something, but you have no idea what the hell they're doing. That's Jameis. He's out there hitting things with a baseball bat, and he's hitting a heavy bat. He's a weird cat, but he's very smart from everything that I've gathered, and he's got a good work ethic. He may get a shot next year. Knowing my luck,
he got LASIK.
Yeah, he got LASIK. Knowing my luck, he'll wind up on the Colts in 2021. It can only go from bad to worse, from Uncle Phil to Jameis, but let's hope not. Taysom Hill, if you like him, I'm fine with that. I'm not proactively buying him, but I don't dislike him. So the quarterbacks for me, I'm going to go hold sell on Drew. I'm going to go hold in general on Jameis, and I'm going to go hold sell on Taysom. So anything else on these quarterbacks before you jump into the running back room?
I just want to hear what your opinion on Drew Brees having maybe his last go at MVP season was in all these games on the road in a dome. Do you think that's something that could honestly cause him to be the QB1 this year?
It wouldn't surprise me, but I think Drew Brees is done regardless from a dynasty standpoint.
Well, yeah, but if you're a contender that needs a quarterback and you're one quarterback away.
If you're willing to risk it, yeah. You said they play the Raiders, that's in a dome. They play the Lions, that's in a dome.
Bad defenses too.
They play in Atlanta, that's a third dome. So that's at least 11 games, and a good game typically, unless it rains, in good weather in Tampa. So there's 12 games where
Tampa
he's not.
Plays them hard though.
And I believe they will be playing Green Bay, but I believe that one may be at home. So from a schedule standpoint, because we're talking 2020, hey, if there are worse baskets to make a gamble and putting your eggs in than the Drew Brees basket. So I don't mind.
He's not as expensive.
He's not. And again, we talked about this the other day on the COVID show where I talked about buying Derrick Henry or selling Derrick Henry. Everything, whether you're buying or selling, is how you phrase it. You have to work. You just can't. This is, and I hate this because I'm in the middle of doing car shopping myself. I hate this Carvana, CarMax bull spit. I don't like. Here's the internet price. I'll just deliver it to your house. No, man. No. I'm old school. I want to haggle. I want to negotiate. I want to talk this thing through. What will you throw in? What can we do?
You're gonna show up in your grays. You're gonna show up in an all gray outfit with some patches in your sweatshirt. Hey, let me get your Christian McCaffrey. I'll give you a Miles Sanders and a first. That's it, and I'll get you this new car.
you have to sell. All right, tell me about Alvin Kamara and Lat Murray.
Alvin Kamara, his value perception wise, it dropped during the offseason, right? He was going around the 109, but now he's back up. You kind of missed a chance to buy on him in the offseason. He's a hold right now. He's a sell. I'd honestly be selling because he's going into what, his fourth year now, third year. Can't remember. It's just he's been so good over his rookie year that it just seems he's been here forever.
He's
So
going
I don't know.
he's going into his fourth year, same as McCaffrey, same as Fournette, same as Mixon. If people for years have talked about that fabled 2014 wide receiver draft class, just throw the 2017 running back draft class in there and be prepared to go, oh my. But yes, keep going.
I just think that if you need to get a stud, Alvin Kamara is a stud, but I would personally be selling him just because the value is there. He's valued around Russell Wilson in a superflex league. Go get Russell Wilson for 8 years. I don't know. That gives you a quarterback. If you need a quarterback, you could package Alvin Kamara and pieces to get younger pieces with Russell Wilson. I don't know. I did that with Drew Brees and Alvin Kamara to get a nice package deal. I forgot what it was, but it wasn't a bad deal.
I don't mind moving. I'm not actively acquiring Alvin Kamara. Now, I took him in the first round of our most recent Patreon because I didn't like the other options around him, and I still think he's going to be awesome. And when I do a startup, I always typically go to win this year, and I don't mind it. But I'm kind of with you. The reservation that you hear in my voice is, what is this going to look like long term without Drew Brees? Now, obviously, they'll be able to afford to sign him, but is it going to be Jameis? Is it going to be Tyson? Is it going to be someone else at the quarterback position? Is he going to continue to get his 81 receptions every year, which ironically he's gotten, I believe, 3 years in a row? I don't know. And without Drew Brees, and we're going to talk about Michael Thomas here in just a second, I mean, if someone comes through with, I don't know that you'll get quite Christian McCaffrey. Well, I know you're not going to get quite Christian McCaffrey prices for him, but I'm going to listen. That Miles Sanders and a first, that might get the deal done for Alvin Kamara. He's a hold, but I'm listening. What about you? You didn't really give me if you're a hold or not, and then you can go right into Lat Murray or the wide receivers.
Yeah, so Kamara, I think specifically this year, he's a hold sell. I mean, depending on what you got, if you have a championship lineup, you got to hold him. If you don't have a championship lineup, you have to sell him, I think. I'd be looking for a young receiver from this rookie class and a 2021 first and another pick or a player. But I would be selling and moving on and trying to get younger just because of COVID and everything and how much it's going to set back everything, I believe, from my perspective.
I do believe he gets paid. I also covered this on the Wednesday Dynasty Warzone show. We talked about COVID and contracts. I think the Derrick Henry contract paves the way for him to get the long-term deal done, much like Mixon, much like Dalvin Cook. I mean, none of these guys have led the league in total rushing. None of these guys have had 16 rushing touchdowns. I think Kamara's had that many combined. And
it's almost like you need a separate salary cap for the running back position alone, just so that you can keep them happy because they're taking all the beating.
Well,
I don't know.
But did you not know that running backs didn't get paid when you started playing running back? If you decided to be a running back and you don't like the pay window, that's a you problem. You chose this job. And and if you're good enough, like Christian McCaffrey, you can rewrite what the value is, much like a Zeke did as well. But for these guys, no. I think if you're Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, you've got to look at the Derrick Henry contract. And if I'm the GM of any of those teams, I'm gonna be like, you've never led the league in rushing. You've never had 16
Mm-hmm.
rushing touchdowns. You've never helped lead, because when I say Derrick Henry led, mister, he led the Tennessee Titans to the AFC Championship game. None of these other backs can say that. So I do think that the Derrick Henry contract does help get a guy like Kamara, under wraps, which will be very helpful for his dynasty stock. I'm just not sure. All right, and then Lat Murray, if he's on your roster, fine. He could be like your RB4. He'll have a flex value here or there, but I'm not buying. No one else is buying, so you can't be selling. I'm just moving on to Michael Thomas. Man,
Yeah, I didn't even mention Lat Murray, so that shows where I'm at with him. So
yeah, no one's buying, so you can't be selling. Talk to me about Michael Thomas, the wide receiver one
I
overall.
love it. I love him. I love his attitude. I love his divaness. It's there. He is disrespected. I mean, he knows he's disrespected, and that's what it shows. I just like that he's gonna catch a slant every single time, and it's coming. It's just like, oh, it's there, it's there, it's there, it's there, it's there. And it's like 10 to 15 times a game he gets that slant, and he scores two of them. He's just a great stat line every game. He's just consistent.
I mean, it's hard to argue with what the guy's done, but he is, older than Tyreek Hill. He is roughly the same age as Devontae Adams. I mean,
Hmm.
he's going into his age 27s. He's actually been in the league like 2 less years than Allen Robinson, and he's older than Allen
But
Robinson. Go ahead.
But is this just the Calvin Johnson effect of, Calvin just took so many beatings and retired early, and then we have Larry Fitzgerald, who's great route runner, very good hips, like he's able to set his hips quickly and he runs really good routes for being tall. Similar to Michael Thomas, I think Michael Thomas could have the longevity that lives his value. I mean, not at his value right now, but he lives his value up until maybe he's 32, 33, and then he starts declining. I don't know. What would you think about that? Something like that. Like,
I could see this going in many different ways. I just don't think that 190 plus target volume is going to continue. And I know Jameis is there, but there's no guarantee that Jameis comes back. I mean, could you really envision this team franchising Jameis Winston next year? I
nope.
and then if he doesn't, I mean, I think that the stat said that Jameis Winston had thrown more passes to New Orleans Saints than Taysom Hill before this year, before they were teammates. I mean, it's a weird situation.
Oh
So
my
with
god.
what you have to pay for him, again, much like I said, I mean, everybody's got a price. I mean, he was not on
Hmm.
my top three players in Dynasty. I'm not moved. I actually moved him one of our Patreon leagues. I moved him and Tyler Higbee for George Kittle and Allen Robinson. That was the trade. I sent Michael Thomas and Tyler Higbee, and in return, I got George Kittle and Allen Robinson. I think I may have
I
thrown
like
in a
it.
second.
I like
I,
it.
I Kittle's my dude. I don't
He's a
mind
wide
Allen
receiver
Robinson.
one.
He is a wide receiver one in a tight end one's body. So for me, Michael Thomas is obviously a hold. But if the right offer comes along, just like I did, I'm going to move him. Emmanuel Sanders, he's a stock hold for me. I mean, if you're a contender and you need the depth, hang on to him. You're not going to get a lot for him right now until the season starts, until you see him with Breeze and you see him moving. Traquan Smith, that's a no for me, dog. He might be like a best ball flyer. If you're in a best ball league, I could easily see the game where Traquan Smith goes 3 for 164 and 2 touchdowns and could win you a week in like a deep best ball play. But no, man, you got anything on Emmanuel Sanders or Traquan Smith?
I mean, do you think it just feels like they're chasing what was Brandon Cooks after they traded him away, even though that trade really benefited their team in the long run with Ryan Ramchick? Feels like they're just trying to replace Brandon Cooks this whole time.
I mean, this offense has always been helped by a speedy wide receiver, whether it was Ted Ginn. I'm drawing a blank
Hmm.
on who was in that role, but before that. But now you bring in Emmanuel Sanders, and then you still have Traquan Smith. Whoever that person is not going to be the volume play. We talked about uh, Alvin Kamara's 81
No.
receptions. We talked about Michael Thomas's 191 targets or whatever it was last year. There's not a
Hmm.
lot left over for a Traquan Smith. And if they thought Traquan Smith had the tools and the upside to be the wide receiver 2 on a Super Bowl team, then they never would have brought in Emmanuel Sanders at his age. So for me, if anyone wants him, I'll throw him in on the back end of a deal. I was trying to get Ryan Griffin thrown in on a deal earlier. I'll be like, hey, what the hell? I'll throw Traquan Smith in. Let's get the deal done. Wrap it up. Anyway, anything else on those 2 wide receivers before we talk about a couple of interesting tight ends?
Nothing more on those wide receivers other than they're still trying to chase Brandon Cooks, who's been being traded around still. They could have got him back.
All right, man. Let's talk something old. Let's talk something new. Let's talk Jared Cook, and let's talk Adam Troutman. What do you got on Jared Cook? I actually, bridged him in a league last year. He's 33 years old, which by Jason Witten and Antonio Gates standards is still very young. But in actual NFL standards, he's coming toward the tail end. But he's a guy that I actually like. What about you?
I really like Jared Cook too. He's in the perfect situation, like you said. Drew Brees likes passing to tight ends. Adam Troutman is young. Why wouldn't I try to go sell Jared Cook if I had him?
I mean, again, like a lot of guys, we talk about sells, and I don't ever want to be the podcast that just randomly throws out, oh, buy, sell, do this, do that. It's not always that easy. Timing in life is everything, and you have to know when to sell Jared Cook. Again, who are you going to sell Jared Cook to? You're going to sell Jared Cook in season to the guy that took a big swing on Mike Gesicki if that big swing misses. You're going to go after a guy like me when he took a big swing on Ian Thomas and he misses, or Jay Sternberger, or there's the other end of that spectrum. The owner that invested heavily in Kittle, which again I would be a target, Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz, Mark Andrews. If one of those guys goes down with injury, then that's going to be your opportunity to try to move Jared Cook. But just to go in there with if you were a door-to-door salesman and you've got a suitcase full of Jared Cook, you're going to have a rough day door-to-door. So do you buy that philosophy?
Honestly, I do buy your philosophy. You're going to have to go find a team that invested in like a TJ Hawkinson or someone who's not going to be consistent per game, where Jared Cook is getting you 8 to 10 points per game with the upside of a 20-point game to 30-point game, like in a tight end premium league. Like he's got the consistent games there. Like I'm going to sell him for a second if I can mid-season. If someone's going to bite, if someone bites, you just have to wait. You have to hold them. You cannot force sell it. You just have to wait until someone, it's just dangle them on the fishing line. Like, oop, I got you $1 right here. Just going to cost you a second. And then they finally bite and you just reel it in. And then you got a second.
Let me ask you this. If you were a guy, I did this in the Scott Fishbowl. Now, it wasn't Jared Cook. I actually did the same thing with Greg Olsen. I drafted TJ Hawkinson. I drafted Jace Sternberger. And then as my third tight end, I drafted Greg Olsen. Because you know what? I feel like early in the season, I can throw in Old Man Olsen. You could throw in Old Man Jared Cook. And I don't mind him. So if you're a team that, you feel like you're a contender, but you don't love your tight end room because you're super young, man, before you have to pay that second that Matt's trying to get you to pay, why don't you just proactively go out there and offer your third? He can start the season. You can watch the landscape of what's going on with your young guys, and maybe you get a chance to flip him later for that same third. Maybe you break even. Maybe you get lucky and get that second Matt's talking about. All right, let's wrap this show up on an interesting guy. Go ahead.
I just had a Greg Olsen trade though that I'd like to tell you about with a second and a third involved in it with one of the players we talked about earlier. With FF Down Under, I traded with Lewis this offseason. I traded my second and third. I think it was a 2022 second and a 2021 third. I traded for Curtis Samuel and Greg Olsen, and that was it. That was the deal. What do you think about that deal? Who do you think was the winner in that one?
I would rather have the players. I mean,
yeah.
The odds of a second and a third hitting are very. I think seconds are 50-50, and thirds are maybe 25%. You might get lucky in there. So I like that deal a lot. And then a guy that you could have gotten with a second or third. Look at that. You gave me a straight great segue. Adam Troutman, man. He may have went a tad higher it could have went like mid third, maybe early third in a tight end premium. But in a one tight end, I mean, I saw him going in the fourth. And, you go to Player Profiler, he's not the speediest guy around, but he's got a great agility score and he's got a humongous catch radius. If I remember correctly, he was a quarterback in high school. His Spark X number is, just slightly above middle of the pack. He broke out super young at like 19 years old, and he was in the 97th percentile of college dominator rating. Now, he was at Dayton, so that doesn't always mean a lot. If he had dominated at Oklahoma, different conversation. But Dayton, you got to be near. What are you at with Adam Troutman, and then where are you at with his offense as a whole?
Yeah, thanks. The Adam Troutman, that draft pick, it just felt like a changing of the guard, if you know what I mean. Like the Jared Cook, Drew Brees, that era, the Adam Troutman, he's there to develop under Jared Cook and Drew Brees, and he's going to be the one to help the next quarterback as the security blanket. He's going to be that tight end in the Sean Payton offense who's gonna bridge the gap for the quarterback. It's a security blanket with Michael Thomas. I don't think he's going to be anything in 2020. I think in 2021 he's going to be really good, and I think you should be buying him. He has crazy hips for a tight end.
I feel like we'll be talking about Adam Troutman this time next year, like we're talking about guys like Ian Thomas, like Blake Jarwin, guys like that next year. And if you want to be ahead of the game, he's a guy that I'm buying, because I think in a year from now we'll be talking about as this kid as a Jay Sternberger. There's another trendy
Dallas
name. Right?
Goddard. Did you buy any Dallas Goddard?
No, he's too expensive as a guy who's still the tight end the tight end too. Where are you at in this offense in general?
I mean, it's kind of hard to go up from here. That offense is so good. It's just going to stay. I think they're going to stay MVP level.
I think that this offense is a hold in 2020, but it's a hold sell, because I have no idea what it's going to look like in 2021 and beyond.
What are your thoughts on the NFC South in general now that you've covered most of them except for I think the Buccaneers?
Yeah, the Buccaneers are next week. I think that the Saints are going to be the easy class of this division. I know we love Tom Brady. I know he's going against the mandates and the wishes of the NFL and the Players Union, still out there practicing with his guys. And I know he wants it, and I know he's got 6 rings, and I know he's the GOAT. I get it, but continuity matters. Drew Brees has got to work in a wide receiver 2-3 in Emmanuel Sanders. And outside of that, man, he knows all these guys. And that's going to benefit Michael Thomas. That's going to benefit Alvin Kamara. It's going to benefit Jared Cook, because you go, as I like to say, you go to the bro and Alvin Kamara, and Michael Thomas. So I think in the NFC South, I think the Saints win this division. I think the Buccaneers will wind up in second. I think Atlanta is going to just be Atlanta. They're going to be treading around 500.
You think he keeps his job in Atlanta?
Probably not. Maybe. Depends on what I didn't look at his contract.
I know the owner likes him.
I mean, it's going to come down to what his contract is. I mean, I don't know how Home Depot's stock's doing. So for Mr. Arthur Blank.
I'm drawing a blank.
I see what you did there. We can't go out better than Matt, man. They say go out on top. We're going to go out on top. Tell these people again where they can find you and how they can get in contact with you if they're looking for some visual graphics type work.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Matty Big Chest, and just reach out to me, man. Like, I love to interact with everybody. Like, you see me in the group chat, the Patreon. It's one of my favorite things to do every day is just talk to everybody. I like to talk to people. So just talk to me, and I'll talk to you back.
Follow me
on Twitter.
At Matty Big Chest on Twitter. I'll make sure to tag him in some tweets so you know how to find him on the show. You can find me on Twitter at DWZ Memphis. And on behalf of Mr. Matty Big Chest, I am Memphis, and here at the Dynasty War Zone, we're just here to make the world a better place for fantasy football. We'll see you back here next week. Thanks, guys. Matt, thank you, buddy. I'm going to bail.
No problem.
I got editing,
Hey.
and then I'm going to try and get some sleep.
Got this today.
All right, man.
Finally use brushes.
All right. I'll be looking to see brush up on it. I'll talk to you.
Later, man.